Welcome, everybody, to the Minions of the Zoo. It's the Tuesday edition. I'm the keeper, Skep, Tock, and with me I have Minions Jenna
Hello.
and the Harry Channel.
Good evening.
I hope you're both having a wonderful evening this evening. I am having a warm evening as the days have crept into the 100-degree range. And if John Kerry could fly to a climate conference somewhere and solve the Texas heat thing, that would be just fine with me, frankly.
Mhm.
So I'm whining about the heat, but man, it really has been brutal down here. Anyway, enough about me. Jen, how are you doing?
I'm good.
What have you been doing for fun?
Hanging out in my room so I can breathe, hanging out with my kids, and having a great 4th of July.
Excellent. Did you have special food for 4th of July?
Steamers and lobster.
Ah, very New England 4th of July, sounds like.
Probably why I'm having pancreas pains today. But worth it.
Now, I didn't get to work in my shellfish pun, but we'll save it. Harry, how are you doing?
Oh, I don't know. How am I doing? It's been a long weekend. I had to work. I know, not much fun. But around 9 p.m.-ish, well, actually about 10 minutes to 9, all hell broke loose outside. I go outside, and within just a few houses of me, there are no less than 6 firework displays going off. And these people were just going to town. Some of them were just trying to shoot down the incoming aliens. Others just were setting off multiple fountains simultaneously. The smoke from all of the fireworks started to just sort of fill the air. It was like watching a movie about World War I for a little bit. It was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy.
Fireworks where you live sound like an enormously bad idea.
Nah, it's fine.
But everything lights on fire so easily, and you're going to blow stuff up? Well, not you personally, but...
Well, you know,
Isn't, like, all of California on fire?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't go out into the middle of, like, a field and do it there. Or just decide, hey, there's a nice oak tree, why don't we set up underneath that?
Yeah.
That would be a really bad idea.
We blew up
gender reveal party.
Mm-hmm.
We blew up ours on the beach. It was low tide, so the flats were a great place in Rhode Island to blow up stuff.
I can tell you a quick story, Jenna, that I think you'll enjoy.
Okay.
I went to, it was a high school graduation day, and a bunch of us said, hey, let's all get in our cars and drive to the beach. So we drive to the beach, and some people say, hey, we want to have a bonfire. I anticipated that they might want to do this, so I made up some of my special brew of lighter fluid for such occasions. And so I'm just sitting here, and these people are trying to make a bonfire, and it's windy because it's California and it's the beach, and it's foggy and it's miserable, and people really want a fire, and they can't get the damn thing to light because they're a bunch of idiots with no practical skills. So I just go, hey, do you want me to take care of that? And they go, sure, if you can. They didn't think I was being serious. So I just got out my special mixture of lighter fluid that I made up and soaked the wood down at the bottom. And I said, you're going to want to stand back. They're like, why? I said, hey, it's on you if you have no eyebrows when this is done. You're going to want to stand back. I'm just telling you. So I stood back, like a few feet, upwind, just lit a match and tossed it like a wooden match and tossed it. And it hit this thing and whoosh, and there was a huge whoosh. One match fire. It even in the wind on the beach, it still lit off with no problems whatsoever.
What did I tell you about stealing
pressure?
What did I tell you about stealing jet fluid?
Well, this is actually a little higher test than jet fluid.
I was going to say JP5 doesn't even burn.
Yeah. Well, this was a mixture of, it was a mixture of, well, something very much like jet fuel, which was kerosene. But I believe it was 3 parts kerosene to 1 part white gas, or naphtha.
Well,
so freaking volatile.
Yeah, get her done.
they saw that from space.
Hey, it worked.
Yeah. Basically have the white gas is like a fuse, and the kerosene is like the payload.
You kind of want to slow it down, otherwise, I mean, if you just lit white gas on fire, it would be bad.
It would be a bad thing.
As it was, this was right on the edge between genius and insanity, I think.
Yeah.
There's a
White
slim
gas is
line
very-
between them. That
Yeah.
It is so volatile. That's the thing. I mean,
Well, that's why you had to dilute it. Yeah.
that sounds like an awesome way to light a fire.
Well,
It's
there
right-
aren't a whole lot of ways to light a fire on a beach when there's about a 20-mile-an-hour cold, moist wind coming off the ocean, and people didn't really plan ahead.
Yeah,
I mean, I anticipated, like I said, that something like this might happen. I don't just drive around with a glass jar, like a mason jar with kerosene and white gas in it.
well, that's good because if you ever
in
got
case somebody's
hit,
listening.
you'd blow
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Don't
It's-
kids don't try it at home.
Yeah, no. Well, it would be stupid to use pure gasoline. That would be insane. But the mixture of white gas and kerosene actually works pretty well. Okay, Minions of the Zoo and me in particular do not recommend doing what I did.
I was just.
I'm a
going
trained
to-
idiot.
I was going to come out with, Minions of the Zoo really seriously advises against mixing white gas with anything, and the things that we talk about doing we talk about them just for your enjoyment. We don't recommend that you do these things.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the entertainment in the story is how foolish we were when we did things. Not that Harry was foolish there,
Oh, it
but,
was it was pretty foolish, but
I could certainly recount some stories where my dumbness almost made me a Darwin statistic, and for no really good reason. But anyway,
yeah. Well, I told you I once got the bright idea to fill a glass jar with just a little tiny bit of acetylene and nitrous oxide, and then
how'd that work out?
well, I mean, it was a good thing that I intentionally left the stop. Well, so basically, I had a stopper with a hole in it.
This was not in a sealed bottle, was it?
Well, it was a sealed bottle, and there was a stopper with a hole in it, and then I had some plastic tubing like you'd use for like the air supply of a fish tank or something.
Okay.
And that was basically what allowed me to get some distance from it. But it's still, instead of, this was a glass Coke bottle. They didn't have the 2-liter plastic ones then. So to make it safer, in quotes, I just made sure the stopper wasn't in very hard, so it would just shoot the stopper out of the top. Yeah.
Whoever
Which you
gets hit by
did,
the
I'm
stopper
sure.
wins a prize.
Yeah, my father was annoyed with me. He did not like,
good,
he was
clean fun.
he was annoyed with me about that. But you get bored. You get bored sometimes, and you do stupid things. That's part of being a kid, is just figuring out what your limits are. And that was the last time I ever did anything quite that stupid.
When I was in 6th grade, I was very proud of myself. I made a compound with my little chemistry set called sodium ferrocyanate. And it's a very spectacular reaction to get it done. You get to see iron filings burn. It's very cool. And it makes this amazingly blue. I mean, it's so royal blue precipitate. And I felt like my sister's t-shirt would look better, if it had some of this blue in it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't consult her with her before I made the design change on her clothes.
Well, that would ruin the surprise.
Yeah. And she was surprised. But I got in a lot of trouble for that, actually.
Mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made.
Well, there's a number of things. They fall under various categories. Mistakes were made is one of the categories. Another one is it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yes.
You know, that's
absolutely.
That's usually that's a good one for when people hook up with people they shouldn't hook up with, and then have regret later. It's like, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
You looked so much better when I was drunk.
Or, you know, like the whole Amber Heard thing. You know, good job, Johnny. I mean, I'm sure it seemed like a good idea at the time. However,
psycho, crazy.
I think what happens to people like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Amber Heard read her own press notices and thought she was this brilliant actress. And Johnny Depp, well, like him or hate him, the guy's got a lot of talent. He's a talented actor, and he's far more talented than Amber Heard will ever be. She's, you know, too self-indulgent too early. She'll never develop from what she is now, I don't think. Very unlikely. And but somebody in that position, you know, they've got it all going for themselves. Some little thing like Amber Heard comes along and seems interesting and everything's going your way. Why do we do this? Why do when everything's going so well, do we screw things up? I've asked myself that question so many times in my life. I don't have a good answer to it. It's like I can't stand prosperity. You know, I have to try new things and inevitably end up with, you know, more trouble than they're worth. That's not always true. I'm too interested in too many things. That's my problem.
Oh, come on. Amber Heard wasn't that bad. I mean, Johnny didn't need that finger. And, you know.
That bitch is crazy. I mean, bitch be crazy.
Well, he was in party mode. You know, that was the thing. He was basically trying to low-key kill himself with drugs and alcohol and partying.
Yeah.
And she was a good-looking girl who was up for a good party.
Yeah. And so she liked drugs just as much as he did.
Yeah, so initially it was kismet. He had money, she had youthful good looks, and they both liked to party, and things were okay for a while until they weren't.
Yeah. Marrying your drinking partner is not always bliss.
Is that a rule or a guideline, Skep?
Yes, it's more of a guideline, really. But truly, that's something that I've learned firsthand. Is, you know, I married my drinking partner, and it was almost the death of both of us. I had to get away from that and, you know, find myself a different life. And it was, you know, it's just too easy to stay in that and get used to that.
Toxicity.
But anyway, I think that she's got one more snap left in her. If you want to talk about Amber Heard, the quick psychological analysis with her is she's not going to be able to stay away from him. She will obsess over him. She'll be saying voodoo mantras, you know, and sticking pins in dolls and, you know, burning clippings of his hair and fingernails. You know,
she's already saved those. She probably started saving them.
Absolutely.
You know, after a year or two into the relationship, she started just picking up. Just in case I need to do some voodoo, I'm just going to save all this stuff.
It would just be to help Johnny.
She's probably still got the tip of that finger.
Probably. Well, today her lawyers filed a motion to have the case dismissed.
Well, I heard that they got the age wrong on one of the jurors or something, and It's like a really,
They're
really
claiming
minor
so
thing.
the juror's age he was supposed to be born in 45, but he was born in 70 or something like, or
Okay.
that's you'd notice that much of an age difference. And it went way beyond that. I actually watched Emily D. Baker read it out and
What
English it for me.
I think the reason that they do stuff like this, Jenna, is so that they can, you know, get the subjection in front of a judge, and the judge will rule on it. Once the judge rules on it, it's done. That objection is done. You can't keep raising that objection, and they need to have a judge say, "No, this is irrelevant," and have, you know, the next level of court not pick that up if they did appeal it.
Yeah.
That's just checking off stuff, you know.
They keep citing the UK case, which Amber Heard actually wasn't a plaintiff or defendant for.
What was in the UK case? What was that about?
The Sun, which is a rag paper, called Johnny a wife beater, and Johnny sued him for that, and Amber testified, and with everything going on with it, the judge didn't. It was a judge in England. They don't do jury for civil cases. It's decided by the judge.
Right.
You get a jury case is very special in England. And they just are using the fact that the Sun won the defamation and the judge wouldn't hear a lot of Johnny's stuff or something, and Amber, she wasn't questioned about if she donated the money. The judge believes she donated the money because she said she did, and all that kind of stuff. So she actually perjured herself technically.
Well, this thing, I don't know. I can't get too terribly excited about it. America was fascinated by it, but it's like we have a big screen of, or like we're all watching a giant screen TV in America of the latest train wreck, you know, whatever it happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were just, you know, the flavor du jour that people look at instead of looking at, you know, actual important things that are happening that probably need to be dealt with.
Well, I can tell you on the positive side to that, when I was going through the hellish May and June, that trial at least kept me entertained. Because,
well, that I know that Johnny Depp's finger feels that it was worth it.
well, I think one of the things that really pissed me off about it was men can be abused, and it was like this foreign concept to everybody that a woman could abuse a man. Of course, when the highest rated partner abuse is in lesbian couples because women are more volatile.
Well, that's a woman abusing a woman, but I get your point.
Well, that the lowest in domestic violence is gay men.
This is me not making a joke.
Yeah. The thing about jury of your queers. No, don't say that.
That would be another joke. That's a good one, though. I like that.
Thank you very much.
Well, before the show, Skep was talking about a topic he wanted to bring up, which was American exceptionalism. So I'm a good guest in that I can take instruction well. So I was going to pivot, if that's okay, to
Yes,
a
please.
comment on that. So just to narrow it down a lot to just a manageable size for the conversation that we want to have. Here's sort of what I think. In terms of a guy like Biden, Joseph Robinette Biden, the resident of the White House, he and Democrats in general don't seem to care about things like efficiency. They think that our economic system and our society is just this thing that they can kind of play with. They're going to make it better. They're going to futz with it. More unions, more this, just throw in a few extra holidays, mandate that people keep people in their homes without kicking them out if they don't pay rent because pandemic. Just go on and on with the list of things that they think about. They don't care about efficiency because they don't think like business people. Trump, despite all of his flaws, which are many, his personal flaws, understood that America is like a machine. And for the machine to run efficiently, you need to not gum up the works with crap. And you need to focus on making the machine efficient. So the point I'm getting at is that if you look at America and our largest rival, friendly rival, but still rival, is the EU. The EU economy is actually comparable in size to the American economy. If you look at things like Nobel Prizes and so on and so forth, they are basically our friendly rival in this thing. And for the longest time, we would laugh at them because they would be talking about 32-hour work weeks. And you'd have employees that couldn't be fired. And people would get ridiculous amounts of time off for every freaking thing you could possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. They had generated their perfect utopian society, which was taking a great people, lots and lots of great people making up the European Union, some of the best minds on earth, and in their own way, abundant resources. They'd been utilized more over the centuries, but still abundant resources. A fantastic part of the world with fantastic people, and just sort of kept them down. You know, the Swedes just spend 20 years just dabbling with socialism, and they don't end up cratering their economy, but they end up, comparative to everybody else who's comparable, suffering. You know, They took what was a juggernaut and turned it into a tugboat. There's just no comparison, and even they sort of course corrected. So, if the question is, do we still have American exceptionalism? And I think that all of this limp-wristed Europhile bullshit that comes out of people like Joseph Robinette Biden and the people with their hand up his ass moving his mouth is slowly eroding all of that. And furthermore, I've brought up, we did like an American exceptionalism stream on Minions a couple years ago. It was one of the first streams I put together when I was hosting. There's other factors like the way the U.S. used to be really good at brain draining the rest of the world. So we would, with the attractive package that we offered, be able to get people from all over the place. But I think just looking at sort of the efficiency thing, you know, America used to be an efficient, dynamic engine that was running really well. And that was the underpinning that made everything else possible. And now there's idiots who don't seem to understand that the economy, we're not too big to fail. The economy is actually important. You can't just monkey with it. And these people who are in the White House now are dangerous. And these people that are running our news and our educational systems are dangerous. They are dangerous to every single thing that makes America good, because they are a cancer in the machine that should be American exceptionalism. That's my thesis.
I actually agree with you, Harry. But I think people are starting to say, knock it off. With the pronouns and let me tell you, if a trans man walked into the bathroom where one of my daughters were, he would be a woman by the time he left. or at least one less appendage. But people are starting to say no, and that's not how America works.
But these are the distractions you're talking about. Honestly, they may be very important on a personal level, but they're not as important as some other things. So, for instance, the SEC has recently decided that it's going to get involved in the equity game and the environment game.
Oh, good Christ.
So what they're doing is they're saying, oh, you're a publicly traded company. You need to disclose information about your plan for carbon neutrality and the carbon impact of all of your suppliers.
Yeah.
This is a huge, huge, huge burden on these things because 4 times a year, they basically have to make this stuff public. And furthermore, a lot of these well-organized idiots are putting pressure on companies to tie the compensation of executives to meeting goals that have nothing to do with business. Equity, inclusion, environment. All of this is a parasitic drag on the machine that could be providing prosperity for all of us.
The marshmallow thing, that's the tire company.
Michelin?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
They're claiming by 2025, all of their tires will be made from recycled blah, 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 and they won't be making any more rubber, or that's their claim.
That's fine. Consumers want to buy, well, there are enough consumers that want to buy a product like that if you put something, a label on there saying that's what it is, they will choose to do that. But that is a separate consideration from coercing companies to do something for reasons that have nothing to do with sales.
Well, the Securities and Exchange Commission has changed substantially in the way it views itself. It used to be the little old agency that enforced the provisions of the Securities and Exchange Act of 1933, the Securities Act of 1934, and the Registered Investment Advisors Act of 1940. That was principally what it did. Was it set a set of regulations that and put those down, saying this is now federal law. You know, according to our charter, we will enforce these regulations on companies that are publicly traded, and in enforcing these regulations, you will be in conformance with the Registration Act, which is the Securities Exchange Act of 1933, and the Regulation of Trading Act, which was the Act of 34, and the sets of limitations and standards that are required for the people who sell securities to maintain the Registered Investment Advisors Act. You know, what can an investment advisor offer, promise? How can they, solicit trades? What do they have to do to operate the security system in the United States? That's a whole different thing. Just for fun, I went to the Securities and Exchange Commission while you two were talking and said, "Give me your mission statement." And it used to be I remember the little mission statement the SEC had. It was some short little thing, to regulate the trading of securities in the United States, and now the executive summary goes on for several pages. I won't bore you with all of it, but you can hear it just in the language of a little bit of it. They say, strengthening core programs and operations, acquiring the necessary skill sets to enhance the agency's oversight of the increasing complex and rapidly changing markets and entities the SEC regulates. What? Making operational the significant new responsibilities assigned to the agency over areas such as derivatives, private fund advisors, municipal advisors under the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. That's very important, actually, that Dodd-Frank thing. Come back to that in just a second. and then implementing the new responsibilities created under Title I of the Jumpstart Our Business Startups Jobs Act of 2012. And the mission statement takes the form of a request for their annual budget, and this is basically the preamble to their request for their budget for next year's. And they currently oversee 35,000 entities. It's about 11,000 investment advisors, about 9,700 mutual funds. That's 9,700 mutual funds, each one insanely complicated, and a bunch of exchange traded funds. I don't know how many of those there are, probably less than 1,000. 4,600 broker dealers with more than 160,000 branch offices. And the SEC is also responsible for reviewing the disclosures and financial statements of approximately 9,500 reporting companies. Okay. And which basically means that they get to look at the financial data of all these companies. And if somebody has a political bone to pick with one of these companies, they can come down and start enforcing all of these thousands and thousands of regulations on a company. And you'll find very quickly that if you follow all of the provisions of all of the applicable acts and legislation and regulations and rules, you will find you cannot trade securities in the United States. It's just too hard to do. And these are the guys who can make it impossible for you to do that politically. I'm very scared of this trend of using regulatory agencies as political hitmen, basically. Do you know what I'm saying, Harry?
Oh yeah, I mean it's this is a really nice company you've got here. It'd be a shame if somebody came in and audited you.
That's basically what they're saying. Merrill Lynch, you got a nice little company here, but we're going to need you to get on board with this woke stuff a little bit better. We'd like to see what your program looks like by next week, or you can expect a top to bottom audit that you'll fail.
Well, what they're requiring are what are called ESG disclosures, which are environment and social governance. So these ESG disclosures, in some cases, investors are interested in them. In other cases, but I think that's probably somewhat overstated. I mean, yes, of course, there are people who choose to invest in things which they think are socially conscious. This is the kind of thing that you would see, like in, say, SEIU.
Russia?
No, like a teachers union or
Right.
a government employees union. That type of thing. They will actually talk to people who manage their retirement funds for them, and
say,
and insist on things like this.
Keep it clean.
Right, and in order to answer those kinds of questions, to find the investments that those people want, they rely on these kinds of disclosures. Right?
Yes.
I assume something happened in chat.
No, look at your screen that we're
look
streaming
at the
off.
screen.
It says
Johnny
Skep
Hellcat
has multiplied.
joined us.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Howdy.
And anyway, keep going, Harry. I'm sorry.
Can I just throw in, Harry, that I think this is just bullying by these people, and it's wrong.
Well, this isn't short-term political stuff. This is long-term Europeification of the United States. So there won't be American exceptionalism if we turn the United States into Europe. What there will be is slow, measured, boring growth. You'll see.
We don't want to be the EU. We don't want to drop down that low.
I think technology is still increasing at the point where the average productivity per worker is making up for most of the impediments we're throwing at it. So on balance, I think we're still going to keep growing more than we would, but we would be so much more prosperous that we could probably actually start talking about 36 and 32-hour weeks if we would just let the system do its job.
Yeah.
You know,
we can't stand prosperity.
Yeah, but we're going to screw up education. We're going to screw up business. We're going to screw up society. We're going to take the people who should be trying to achieve some sense of brotherhood and tear them apart. And yeah, we're just, it's like a Yuri Bezmenov prophetic tale. Not that I necessarily believe everything Yuri Bezmenov said, just simply as a predictor of things that happened, he seems to be uncannily accurate.
Can I just throw in the 32 to 36 hour weekday? I think I'm not sure about Johnny because I don't know him well enough, but I don't think anyone here, when they worked full time, worked under 40 something hours.
Well, that would be by
32-hour
definition not full time now. You know what I mean? It's like that would be part time work if you worked less than 40 hours.
Well, I'm talking. Well, this was 17 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But I went to work with a hemoglobin of 4 because you went to work. That's what you did. You
Yep.
didn't call in sick. You didn't, email your boss, I'm sorry, I got caught in the Starbucks line. I'm not able to come back to work.
That's what Robitussin's for. Walk it off. And a lot of people
blood transfusions.
A lot of people would do that. They would just take their Theraflu and their Robitussin and they would just go to work and not get 2 months of vacation a year.
When I started my first job, well, my second job actually, because my first job was the third circle of hell at Taco John's, which you would think, having the name Johnny, they would be like, "Oh, you must run this place." It's like, if I hear that joke one more time, I'm gonna snap and break your neck. But
that's a little overkill.
When it happens at least 30 times a day.
I was making a joke about you killing some with the overkill.
Yeah, I get tired of people asking me if I know the Hendersons, so trust me, I feel your pain, man.
Oh, because your name's Harry.
Yeah. Sorry, Johnny, go on.
But
that's stupid.
Yeah, my boss, even though I worked in the food industry, he was like, if you're like super sick, like don't come in because this is food. But if you're like manageable, fight it and come and bring it in. And so, not like when I was to the point where I was like, if I had a cold, I wasn't like coughing all over the dishes and everything. But yeah, I would be downing bottle upon bottle of cough syrup to at least make it to work.
I worked with babies, and children, so one of them always had something running.
One thing about being on a ship, just to share my own 2 cents about being sick, what constitutes being sick. Everybody knows what goes on at sick bay. If you show up at sick bay, everybody on the ship will know who showed up at sick bay that day and who has got what. Because when it comes down to it, sailors and officers aboard Navy ships just like to gossip. They just do. They're bored. And so talking about who's sick and who's not sick is a big deal. And one of the things you don't want to have happen on a ship is to get the reputation as a malingerer. That means someone who is always trying to get out of work, somebody who doesn't do a good job and is terminally lazy. Because there is a breed of petty officer in the United States Navy, at least there used to be, that took specific delight in making those people's lives into living tortured hell. And I saw it happen on a couple of occasions. it really you tended to. The other thing in the Navy was that was not more macho to show up at sick bay. You know, if you showed up to have the doc take a look at you, it was usually because you'd laid your hand open or broken your, leg falling down a ladder or something. It the and in all the time that I was in the Navy, I never once ran into a case of fibromyalgia. Nobody
Did a
ever
lot
had
of
one. Not
other
one.
shipmates?
Nope. Never even heard of fibromyalgia until a few years ago.
Well,
I don't know
What
how
about it
old
from a
is.
commercial? And I don't know which one, but I think there was a medication that they were trying to
Lyrica.
ease symptoms. Was it Lyrica?
Lyrica. There's
is it
several
the
of
one
them.
with the butterfly?
It's basically gabapentin that's been juiced a little bit to be less terrible.
Right. And you're thinking of Lunesta.
No, that's a sleep aid.
No,
Yeah,
no, no.
that's-
I'm talking to Jenna.
Oh, sorry.
The one
I-
with the butterfly is Lunesta. That has the butterfly commercial. And the foregoing was not related to the point Harry made.
My grandmother used to call Lunesta her butterfly pills because she couldn't remember what it was called.
Yes, I remember you telling that story.
Yeah, it's. I'm not a big fan of Lunesta and Ambien, but anyway, enough about me.
No. Well,
Ambien. That's the one that everyone was sleepwalking with, right?
Yes. It
Yep.
has a real problem with
Wait, you sleepwalk if you take it?
nocturnal ambulation, as they call it. Yes. Yeah, people were getting into their cars and driving down their sidewalks. The
That's
Ambien,
terrifying.
yeah, that would scare me to be taking that stuff. I would have to, I don't mean to poo-poo anybody's sleep disorders, but there's got to be a different approach.
I think for now on, I'm going to read my MotZ by you. I'm not kidding. Because you know more about them than people that seem to give them to me.
No, the only thing is, I'm interested in that. You should listen to your doctors and the professionals who have trained.
Oh, absolutely.
I know that much about them. I might have an opinion that would be worth something just from the standpoint of, what my personal experience or what I've read about something. But you should never substitute for what a doctor or a nurse
yeah.
tells you, ever.
I was going to say, okay, put on this medicine.
Now, I love
What do
talking
you know
about that
about
stuff, and I'm fascinated by it. I can usually research things and at least shine a little light on it and doing stuff like that. Yeah, that's absolutely fun.
Just
Assassin of the Grey said that Skep Tock, I got threatened with being charged with malingering all the time when I had real injuries. So yeah, that was a different time. I think that's not the way to manage people either. So somebody's actually injured, they're not going to do a good job at what they're doing, and the intelligent thing is to get them put back together so that they can operate at a good level. Unfortunately,
Assassin, you were Navy?
Pardon me?
I was asking Assassin if he was Navy.
I think he was
I thought he was Army.
I thought he was Marine Corps, but maybe he was Army.
Space
Watch,
Force.
he's going to end up being Coast Guard.
Space Force.
Yes, he may have been Space Force. Were you in Space Force, Assassin? They have the cutest uniforms, don't they?
In Space Force, nobody can hear you scream.
Well, I wonder if they have in Space Force uniforms that will fit pregnant women. Yes, I said women.
I think that they have mandatory piercings. I did hear about that.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be an overweight lesbian of color to be an officer. I'm just kidding. That's not really the Space Force. The Space Force is an important part in our defense against whatever they defend against.
Yeah, they all laughed at the Space Force until the day they really, really needed the Space Force. And then we'll find out that none of their shit works.
Assassin says that he was Army. He said he hates the taste of crayon and cannot fit his head in the tiny jar. And he likes his sex with women.
He just can't get any
Just
women.
women in caps. Likes big women.
Actually, Harry, a few of my kiddos got put on melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
Only one of them had crazy dreams, and we took it off. We tried it for 3 nights, and they had insane, crazy wake-up screaming dreams.
It's probably because you didn't use time release and you started with too high a dose.
Well,
That's what they frequently do. Say, just take 10 milligrams and go to bed. It'll be great. And then you wake
I
up
did what
screaming.
what their pediatrician told me to do.
Well, I'm sure he's a very smart man.
Yeah, pediatricians.
And
He knows how to color within the lines.
If you ever want to keep a secret from a pediatrician, hide it in a physician's desk reference, because they really do not. They really are deficient. There's some specialties that are worse than others. Pediatricians are one of the most deficient in knowing what they need to know about pharmaceuticals. And part of the reason is their field of endeavor has so many freaking drugs in it that they could be potentially called upon to know how they work. It's almost impossible. I mean, they've got a very tough challenge. And
I love our pediatrician.
But pediatricians usually like talking to people like me, who reps from the drug company, because we actually tell them how to use the drugs that they need to do, and they love getting that high speed, training, basically.
I liked my boy's pediatrician. I did not like his physician's assistants.
Yeah.
When I was
Were they
giving
PAs or nurse practitioners?
I'm not sure, but we took Rocky in for his, I think it was 2-year shots, and they pretty much looked at me and you're like, ready to hold him down? And I'm like, well, are you ready to give him the shot? Like, you can try and give it to him without him freaking out.
Yeah,
rather
just
than
tell him.
just like strap him down. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll because I know he's going to be a hassle, so I'll at least I'll distract him up top so I can keep his hands away. Go ahead and hold his leg down, and then you can give him the shot. And she doesn't hold his leg down. She pulls the needle or pulls the cap off the needle and goes to give him the shot. Well, his leg's still not held. So she drags the needle down his leg.
Oh.
And I looked at her and I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
She didn't give the shot with that needle, did she?
Yes, she did.
If she dragged the needle down the leg, that needle is not sterile anymore. That's why they rub the injection site with alcohol to get rid of the bacteria and viruses that are there. And if that needle touched a non-sterilized area, it's going to pick up the surface area, surface bacteria, pick up stuff like strep and staph. And when you inject that down deep into the body, that can be a bad thing.
MRSA.
Get or not even a MRSA, just a regular staph infection can get away from you with a kid. That kills a lot of, staph infections kill a lot of children in the world still today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
People think just because we have antibiotics, it's an automatic thing. That's not true at all.
Yeah. It was a long time ago. I don't remember. I don't quite recall if they did.
Yeah.
Though it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't.
A long time ago.
I was going to put in a good word for melatonin, just working it back to that. I've had pretty good luck with melatonin as a sleep aid. For whatever reason, as I've gotten older, my ability to go to sleep is better than it has ever been, as Harry found out the other night. But I don't stay asleep for very long. That's my chief complaint. But melatonin, man, if I take that stuff, it just puts me right to sleep. I don't notice any more dreaming than usual, but I found it very effective. So I just wanted to put a good word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the three.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The 3 kids that are still on it, it's just a mother's miracle.
Well, that's good. Harry, how do you take it? How does it work for you?
I find that 6 milligrams time release 30 minutes before bed seems to work pretty well. It doesn't keep me asleep quite as long as I might want it to, but at least I get a good 5 hours in. It allows me to move my go to sleep time to an earlier time sometimes when it starts to slide the wrong way. And I don't really have nightmares with it. When I just take 10 milligrams of melatonin without the time release, where it just hits you all at once, that doesn't go well for me.
Yeah,
nightmares.
I agree with the time release thing.
Yeah, the time release, and it's cheap anyway. I mean, it's a little more expensive, but the time release spreads it out. I think it does a better job of. It doesn't hit you quite like a hammer to knock you to make you go to sleep. You still need to do good things with your sleep hygiene in terms of maybe some white noise, the right colored lights, not too much light. Don't stare at your phone, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if you do all those things, it'll help you get to sleep and it'll help you wake up. It's not just for sleep. It's also a pretty potent antioxidant. And it's a complicated molecule that does a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's actually produced I think it's produced by your body. I think that's actually naturally produced.
It is. This is just upping it a bit.
I think I had mentioned before with because he has a REM sleeping disorder, Mike Birbiglia. He was talking about reading a book about a healthy, like Harry was saying, the sleep. What's the word for it?
Hygiene.
Yeah, hygiene. Yeah, thank you. And he's like, don't watch TV. Stay off your phone. And the way he's joking about it is like, so I had this large pizza with me, and I was on my phone because he had set Google alerts to his name. And so his phone just kept chiming whenever anyone would Google him. So
that could be a problem.
So yeah, and then he, because if anyone has remembered, he was at a hotel, and he had a moment where he jumped out of the second-story window of his hotel room and embedded a shard of glass in his leg.
Why?
And because he wasn't sure that he had the sleep disorder at the time, because he didn't know. He just would go to sleep and then wake up in random locations. And yeah, he came to and he was running down the street and he's just like, what the hell am I? And why is my leg bleeding?
Yikes.
Yeah.
And
So
so now he sleeps in a body sleeping bag with mittens, and it like goes over his head to where he can only have his face out.
So he's like a burrito.
Pretty much.
Does it keep him safe?
Yeah, for the most part, from what I understand, it looks kind of silly, but it works for him. So better safe than taking a header out of a even higher storied window.
Yeah.
it's
Are you sure he
interesting.
doesn't know Amber Heard?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
That kills my joke.
I have a feeling a lot of people know Amber.
In the biblical sense.
Perchance. But anyway, that was the American exceptionalism thing. I mean, obviously there's a lot more that goes into it.
Oh yeah. The thing of it is people were asking the question, how do you feel on this July 4th? How do you feel about your country, about America, and so forth? And sometimes my country just makes me tired. You know, just I've had enough of the woke progressivism, the nonsense, the mind bending comedy from both the right and the left. I mean, I think the comedy's been more spectacular on the left, but the right is not without its own crazy people. But seeing Ilhan Omar booed off the stage, that gives me hope for America. It makes me think, hey, maybe we do get tired of shooting ourselves in the foot, and maybe we're finally at the point of going to put the gun down. I think the midterms are going to be a very interesting look and see how seriously the American polity has been offended by the antics of the Bidenistas and the wokeistas, who have just taken a pretty nicely functioning country and have hurt us economically, certainly in the intermediate term. I'm not going to say they hurt us in the long term, because I still think that everything that's going on is fixable. But the pain in the ass thing is it takes time to get out of an inflationary problem. And when these guys were saying that this inflation is transitory,
We all had a good laugh at that, didn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
inflation doesn't usually do that. It usually requires a period of very low growth, and that is and improving fundamentals too in the economy during that period of low growth, where people are miserable, unemployment stays relatively high, growth stays relatively low, until the economic system heals itself. Basically, it normalizes again, and cost of capital goes to a normalized basis, and the economy can begin to do the magic that it always does. And that's the thing that just infuriates me about all this, is it was so completely needless. It was so completely shooting ourselves in the foot. What Joe Biden did, listening to that guy Krugman, who's one of the most irresponsible people in our history. You want to see a man who is a true villain. Paul Krugman is that man. You wouldn't think an economist could uh, be kind of a master criminal, but the advice that he gave and was taken by uh, some of our chief executives was criminally bad. And we've had some other criminals. They don't all come from the left either. You know, Dick Cheney was the first guy who said, "Hey, deficits don't really matter. You know, we're the United States. Fuck everybody else." Well, yeah, not so much, Dick. Thanks. And you know, he's
Yeah. Your daughter's terrible too, Dick.
and plus he gave us Liz, you know, on top of that. So, and anyway, not to get too far into that, but go ahead.
She is the AOC of Republicans. Only, no, she's not. Yeah,
She's actually more like her own animal. She's a Republican who's embarrassed to be a Republican because she wants to curry favor with the Democrats. She also knows that she's out on her ass, that she's not going to, you know, win the election that's coming up, and she just wants a little bit more, uh, you know, wants to take a little bit more Republican hide with her on the way out. I don't really understand what is in her heart other than just, you know, wanting to seek attention, just being addicted to the power game.
she is addicted to the power.
Have you figured out a motive for this? Any motive for what she does? Anybody?
Evil?
No, it's not evil. She's just one of those. It's hard to describe. I mean, people will call them rhinos, but you run into these sort of Republicans in name only, and it's like she's a Republican, but she feels guilty about it, like Skep said. I pretty much agree with that. Is she the daughter that's gay, or is that a different daughter?
That's a different daughter.
That's a different daughter. Okay, just simplify.
Oh, if she was gay, she'd be shouting it loud and proud.
Half sister or something. I'll tell you.
Doesn't matter.
Rodney is
it's
a
just
piece
not
of...
her. Well, I mean, it's sort of Romney Republicans. It's not great that Mitt Romney's niece is running the Republican Party. I saw Ronna McDaniel on one of the news shows a few days ago, and I have to say I wasn't terribly impressed. And this is coming from a party that had people like Reince Priebus as the head for a while. It made me long for the days of Reince Priebus. That's how uninspiring she was.
I'm sorry, who was this?
Ronna McDaniel, the head of the RNC.
Oh, the
Romney,
RNC.
the Romney kid, Romney relative.
She's a wreck. Oh my gosh, she's absolutely uninspiring. That was Mary Cheney, was the gay daughter.
Okay.
Trying to, I could not remember that, but anyway.
Yeah, you're a little old to be rebelling against your dad, Liz Cheney. You can just stop. No, really? But she's going to get voted out. She's so far away from the people who put her in office at this point that she's pretty much gone. The fat lady is warming up in the wings. She's ready to go on stage and start singing.
Absolutely.
It was either Addie or Gray that mentioned that AOC and the brother Marrier are going to be safe in their district because their district, you know. But I'll be glad to see Liz go and just wish the others would go.
Yeah.
And I'm having trouble with words and putting thought process together, so I'm sorry about that if I sound kind of...
That's okay. I've been doing it for 70 years. Same
I know.
problem.
I just feel
Yeah.
like I'm
This stream is
not
brought to you by
making
Ambien.
strange.
Ambien.
Ambien.
I
Dead air. Ambien's the cure.
Well, since we've got 3 hosts here, I find this is a thing I have to explain to people a lot.
sure
Like sometimes,
just
what?
Go ahead, Harry, please.
No, I think Jenna had more to say. She just
Oh no,
stopped,
I was
so.
just being a brat.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, I was just gonna say we do this a lot, and we've been doing this for a long time. And I find myself a lot of times avoiding topics because I feel like we've talked about them enough. It's like I could talk about, crazy transgender news every week. There's always something to talk about, right?
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to talk about that every single week because I don't want people to think this is like the most important thing to me. It's like, yeah, it's important. I mean, as important as women's sports is to me. Like, I literally don't have a dog in this fight. First of all, don't like sports. Second of all, with the exception of women's basketball and maybe a few other things, I'm not like a big fan of women's sports in particular. So I really don't have a dog in this fight. It's just the unfairness of it offends me, like it does with a lot of other people. The idea
Right.
that some biological male can who has a motive for lying, somebody who has a motive for lying, I'm the bad guy because I don't trust people that I'm told I have to trust.
Listen and
It's like,
believe, Harry.
Yeah, I don't listen and believe to pretty much anybody. It's like it's trust but verify. That's
Right.
the way that works. But the point is, I mean, I could talk about that every week, but I don't, because I just don't want to talk about it every single week because it makes it seem like it has undue importance. And there's things that are really interesting to me, like a lot of technology stuff, but I try not to talk about it too much because I know that the audience is probably not that on board and I don't want to waste people's time. I mean, how do you guys decide which stuff you want to talk about and which stuff you sort of don't want to talk about? Do you guys have like a method, or do you just let the guests decide, or how do you go about figuring out what you're going to talk about? That's my question.
You go first, Johnny.
Because I am the master of planning,
Mm-hmm.
we just play it by ear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everything is pretty much off the cuff. There might be something that I'll bring up on the stream that's, whether it's serious or political, or just someone being stupid and getting gored by a bison for the 17 millionth time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just usually something we find, either, the day of or the hour before.
I find having hosts on a little bit challenging because one of the things that I do as a host is I try and remember that other people would like to say something too, Skep. And I don't have to be talking all the time. And I really try and back off, particularly when I'm hosting, and give other people a chance to talk. I think there may be a lot of that going on between the 3 of us, where we are listening for other people to take up the conversational slack. But in terms of how I prepare and what I think about how am I going to run the show, my shows, I usually have 4 or 5 general areas in my mind, usually with some recent thing that has happened in each one. And I listen to people, and when I first say hello, when we're first going around and spending half an hour telling each other how our week was, I listen to that and see if there's a natural way to introduce what I was talking about, and then I'll relate it to relate that topic or something, some aspect of that topic to something someone has said, and try and get it in that way. Just, I'm not trying to be manipulative. I'm just trying to have it be a natural flow and have people get into it and talk about it in that way. I had thought, because of the personalities that we had on tonight, especially with Johnny coming in and joining us, that it could be a really, it might be an interesting thing to talk about the American exceptionalism business, and really, what our reflections were on, what is the state of our country really? What are our biggest problems? Yeah, that's an interesting way to analyze things. It is just, if you had to identify the single biggest problem, the single biggest thing we have to figure out in order for our country to be happy and healthy for the next, say, 100 years, what would that topic be? That's actually a pretty interesting question. If I ask that question of this group, like Jenna, what would you say the number one topic that the United States needs to address in order to be happy for the next 100 years? What would you say it is? Just off the top of your head, fast response. Boom.
Stop listening to the minority of wokeism.
Okay, stop listening to wokeism. Johnny, what would you say it is?
Now, and this is just to reiterate that, what could we do?
What's our biggest problem that we need to solve to be happy for the next 100 years?
Everyone just needs to leave each other the fuck alone.
All right. Harry, how about you?
Well, it's sort of like what Johnny's talking about, but we basically need to get our government to stop stepping on business's dick all the time.
Yeah. And Harry's is a lot closer to my own answer, which actually has parts of all of your answer in. It really comes back to why I'm a libertarian. I want American life to be less about being led around by the government and told what to do by the government, and have people leading the government and telling the government what to do. We can have that kind of a country. All we have to do is want it. In order to do that, we have to get rid of a lot of laws. We have to get rid of a lot of bureaucracy. And we have to pass more intelligent laws that respect individual freedom. But there's one other thing that we need to do. And this is probably the bell of the cat task, the impossible thing. Miracle happens here box. And that is, we need to develop a common culture to where we hold a lot of basic values in common with one another, and have that be a similarity. Without that cultural commonality, it's very hard to get a big population of people all move in the same direction. And you have to live the libertarian life. You rely on cultural norms and moral suasion. In other words, the ability to explain to somebody that they shouldn't do something just because it's morally wrong, even though it might have immediate benefit to them. And if we could do that, we could have paradise on earth. We really could. We could have a country where you wouldn't have to lock anything up. No one would even think of stealing. Can you imagine that? We really could, in terms of the savings and efficiencies that would bring to society, we could get about as close to a post-scarcity society, I think, as it's possible to get. But you have to throw off the tyranny of a government that keeps telling you that it's taking away all these liberties for your own good. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I actually was gonna bring up that the Second Amendment is there for a tyrannical government, so that we don't. That I mean, a lot of people don't realize what the Second Amendment actually means, but
The government that these people want to ban guns was brought to you by people with guns.
yeah, and criminals are just going to get guns however they're going to get them no matter what. So I'll sleep great with the weapons I have.
Well, that's you have to wonder. That's the other thing is when it comes to gun control, real gun control will not happen until they have taken all the handguns away from Americans. That's really, and that's what Beto O'Rourke and people like him want. And that's what the progressives want. They want every gun out of the hands of private citizens so that only criminals will have guns. They think that somehow that will lead to a better world. Actually, they just don't want people to have the means of pulling the ultimate sanction on government, on changing government via armed revolution.
I think your position doesn't pay enough attention to motivated self-interest. I don't think that this libertarian utopia is possible. Even if we went through a program of selective breeding of human beings, a eugenics program, to breed out all of the entrepreneurial spirit, legal and otherwise, eventually it would just creep its way back in. Because
sub-optimization, right?
Yeah,
suboptimal behavior is attractive because it's optimal to you, even though it's not optimal to the organization or organism as a whole.
Yeah.
And, I get it, and it's not a perfect solution, but strides in that direction could really change our lives. Yeah, I agree with you. You're never going to get to anything like a perfect society like that. But I think you can make strides toward a more libertarian society. But it would have to be a society in which people could experience consequences. We're living in a society, and part of this woke nonsense that's happening is a result of people wanting to make society perfectly safe, perfectly without risk, perfectly without loss, perfectly without bad things.
But that's impossible.
Societies don't work that way. Societies have winners, they have losers, they have ups, they have downs, births, deaths, tragedies, and great happiness. That's just the way societies are. But how reacting to them in such a way as to overreact, to overcorrect the problem, and too often that's what governments do. When you give them the ability to regulate, you get left with a network of regulations that have the effect of being sclerotic to the functioning of society and the economy, I think. He said, killing the conversation effectively.
No, it's just I had a feeling you were still sort of going. So
yeah, that's kind of that's what I wanted to get out there.
So big picture, if you go super big picture, the idea of the nation state is a relatively new concept.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of a common shared values that a nation holds is already kind of abstract for human beings to begin with. We're already kind of out there, a little bit away from our nature to get into this sort of stuff. So just keeping that in mind for a moment. It was only until plows got to be really good, iron became kind of plentiful, and we started the Industrial Revolution that we had enough money as a society that we could even think about not making kids work in the mines and the fields and instead go to school.
You're not wrong.
Now, kids went to school, and then it was at this point that the idea of something like a national identity was first sort of uniformly applied, or somewhat uniformly applied to this generation that was coming up. Pledge of Allegiance, right? So you could enforce things like grammar. You could have a minimum educational standard. You'd have these types of things. As useful as those are for the workforce, they were much more useful for actually giving people a sense of the shared values and the national identity you're talking about. However, we've reached the point now where we can't trust the schools to fulfill that role anymore, because there are bad actors amongst us that we may not be able to weed out. We don't want the schools to have that job. No. And if the schools don't have that job, and you don't have something like a common sort of religious value, who does? All you have is basically, I guess, sort of the cultural gestalt, which influences everybody in weird and different ways depending on a lot of different factors. Or you've got entertainment, which those are the only things that are basically left, because you can't really use schools and you can't really use religion. Well, logistically, I think it's very difficult to do what you're talking about, aside from the fact that it doesn't really account for motivated self-interest properly. I just see it as being kind of unworkable, and I don't have an answer. I think that the best way to convince people of stuff is to set an example, to live well. A lot of the conversation we're having about, well, what should we be doing as a country, is, well, this state did really well. They didn't lock down, and look, a bunch of them didn't die, and they're actually much more prosperous economically than these other states who didn't do these things.
Yep.
It's the same kind of thing. You're like 35-year-old guy who's a bachelor, spending all your time on, I don't know, whatever the current dating app is that's cool with all the kids. And then you see your friends who are married and have 2.5 children. And sure, their life may not be perfect, but at least, there's things you see and you go, hey, maybe I actually want something more like that. Mm-hmm. So living well, doing well, succeeding is the best way to convince people to get on board with something. That's the only way you can really do it. And it's not as simple and cut and dried as just saying this is the national curriculum. Because, like I said, the schools have proven that in the current day, they're no longer fit for purpose.
Boy, that's no doubt.
So it's my way is extremely messy, but that's the best I can come up with.
Best thing I ever did was pull my kids out of public school.
Yep.
I think that the schools, actually, this is an interesting thing to talk about. I think the schools may be gaming themselves. I suspect there's going to be a resurgence in private schools in a lot of states. I think in some states, the education board is going to be powerful enough to prevent this. But in some places, and these will be the places with the really good schools, there will be private schools that offer the kind of education that public schools used to. And we may even see the end of public schools in our lifetime. And when they end, they will mostly have died from the predations of the unions, in my opinion.
The public schools will be the place that people go when they've been kicked out of all the private schools for bad behavior or non-payment.
That might just happen that way. Be an interesting place to get a fine education from blue-haired wokesters who who failed math in college and now are teaching it. You know, there's a substantial amount of that.
Yeah.
Teachers who failed a subject in college or who did terribly in it teaching that subject because that makes sense.
Yeah. Those who can't teach.
Well, all they have to do is read the lesson plan. They're issued the lesson plan, read the lesson plan, and you have taught your class. That's teaching. To the union, you've taught your class successfully.
And those who can't teach gym. I think that's the way it's supposed to go.
Yes.
Honestly, yes. I don't know. I would think that high school gym teachers could be pretty awesome if they did their job well. And I'm sure there are ones out there that do a good job. But yeah.
If I had not been injured or become a mother and continued teaching, I would have not worked for public schools by the point of about 2012. I would have been like, I know, this is, we're making little commie soldiers.
Commie soldiers?
Yeah.
I like
sheep.
That.
Also sheep. We're making sheep. As a mother, I want my kids to lead, not to follow.
Well, 80% of them are going to follow and 20% of them are going to lead. Everybody can't be a leader. I know you want your kids to be the leader, but you know, sometimes leaders aren't the happiest people. Sometimes the happy people are the people that are lucky enough to have a really good leader.
Yes, as long as they have a strong sense of self and a strong sense of what they believe in, not made up what you believe in, like pronouns.
Jenna, who was the best leader you ever had? Of anything?
I'm sorry?
Who was the best leader you ever had of anything? It's a good question, isn't it?
It is.
Well,
my grandmother.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Johnny. She's thinking over.
Oh, well, I can think of a more recent example. My kickboxing coach.
Mm-hmm. What's great about him as a leader?
He kind of, because I'm when I started, it was mainly because I had my youngest in the kickboxing class, and I didn't want to be that parent that just throws your kid into something without you're going to do that, I'm going to do this, so that at least we're kind of participating in the same stuff, but kind of, but not really. I don't know, it seemed more, like encouraging, because he sees me doing it and then he's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And when I started, I'm not aggressive. I'm not an aggressive guy. As much as a mouthpiece as I am. And like he was, he had a nickname for me, Gentle Johnny, because
I don't know if that's the nickname you want from your kickboxing coach.
Well, and like the funny part about it is that when I have a really good defense when it comes to because it's like a turtle. I shell up,
Mm-hmm.
and then as soon as they're like, he's not hitting, and then they would turn to the coach, and then that's when I would hit, because I'm waiting for my spot, and it drove a lot of people nuts, and because I told him, I'm like, I'm afraid of getting hit. I don't want to get hit in the face. And he's like, and then just watching him, and he's getting just he's really fast, like when it comes to defense. But I mean, this guy is like he's got belts, for tournaments and whatnot. And I'm like, how do you like get hit and not just absolutely lose yourself in the thing? Because like I got hit once in the face, and I like me and the guy we were just trading shots with, he like we were sweating, and his glove hit mine, and it slipped past and just nailed me on the bridge of the nose. And we were both exhausted, and just I could feel just anger because I'm like, oh, the prick, just. And then like everything just like my back was hurting just because of use.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, pull it back, I didn't mean to. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll come back. And then we went back to normal. And he pulled me aside, and he's like, you can't get mad when that happens. And I'm trying to find out how not to. And he goes, it's not something you can just turn on and off. You have to get hit in order for it to get something you can get used to it, essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's like, you have to do it.
Yeah.
It's not something you just learn.
Okay. Well, that's it. So kickboxing. How about you, Harry? Who was the best leader you ever had?
Well, if you'd asked me when I was younger, I probably would have given you an answer. And I've sort of arrived at the conclusion that I don't like to think in those terms, because it puts too much emphasis on fallible humans. No human being is really perfect when it comes to stuff like this. I still remember, was it General Petraeus? I was thinking, man, General Petraeus, he's got everything kind of going on. I wish I could be as disciplined as General Petraeus. Get up in the morning and, go for a 6-mile run, and just, you look at the stuff and think, man, and he's holding down this terrible, terrible job of trying to, deal with all this crap in the Middle East. And then along comes, what was it, Paula Broadwell?
Yeah.
And she just toppled the whole house of cards that was General Petraeus.
Men are such fools for a skirt.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I kind of know the type that can get me, so I know what my kryptonite is, and she's like my kryptonite. So I kind of understand what happened. I'm sure it was a good idea at the time.
Oh yeah.
Going back to the thing, it's like, I've been so disciplined for so long. I've earned this. Yeah, right. Yeah. Good job, Sparky. No, I've known a lot of great leaders. My grandfather was a great leader, and I've learned more watching people do the right thing, surprisingly by example, than I have ever having somebody just sort of stand up and shout orders. I've seen people let stuff go that other people would have just become kind of apoplectic about, and I just have to be kind of purposefully vague. And I think, watching somebody forgive somebody, for instance, is like a real act of forgiveness is a much more instructive lesson than just telling people what they need to do. So in terms of leaders, I judge them by the actions that they take, and I understand that they're fallible and that there isn't really any one person that's like the leader. It really takes a group. This is why it's good to have friends, because they'll tell you that haircut looks stupid, and they'll tell you when you need to take a break and go take a sabbatical, and they will do those things for you. Because so I don't like thinking in terms of like one person being a leader. I like systems that work well. I like people who set up a system that works well and then surround themselves with the right support structure. So I guess to me, that's what a good leader is.
You actually stole a lot of my own answer, because that what I was going to say was that the leadership paradigm is something I look at a little bit differently. What I think of as leadership, probably more people would think of as mentoring, and the leaders who I've admired, and I've had a few. I had one in particular in business that he was so good at knowing not only what the right thing to say was, but he could sense moods, and he knew how to come at you when you were. He knew when to leave you alone. Something disappointing had happened, and or he and I would occasionally disagree about something, and sometimes he was right, sometimes I was right, but I learned so much from him about business and how business really works. I was fresh out of school, my brand new MBA clutched in my hand, and went to work for this guy at United Advertising for 3 years, and that was enough to tell me that this computer business was going to go places. And I had been messing with it from 83 to 85. And then it was really my time with this guy's name was Neil Kay, worked for United Advertising. Just amazing human being in terms of his understanding of the insurance business, what will work, what won't work, and his ability to relay that information. So my leaders tend to be good mentors and teachers. So, those are people I take a lot of stock from. He also had an exemplary personal life. He had, I think, 3 or 4 children that were his own biological children, and he adopted like 6 or 7 others, half of them with special needs. Just a mensch of a guy, just really world class.
So I have something for you, Skep.
Yeah.
My grandfather wrote up a set of criteria that he would use for evaluating people. And so he actually put them together. So I have his thing, which he just I have them put together, and I've turned to the section on leadership. And if you'll forgive me, I will read to you what my grandfather had written about leadership.
To hear that.
Many books have been written on the subject of leadership, but most of us can recognize it when we see it without much elaborate analysis. In its simplest terms, a man's leadership is his ability to get other people to willingly do what needs to get done. This usually involves the ability to express himself clearly, to command respect for himself, and to show his respect for others. The result of good leadership can generally be observed, type's a little small, by what we call high morale and good teamwork among the man's subordinates. While leadership is definitely related to personality, these two characteristics can be quite different. A man may have a good personality in the sense of being popular and well-liked, but still may be unable to establish a position of leadership. On the other hand, a man may be accepted as a leader without necessarily being popular or having what we often think of as a good personality. the acid test of a man's leadership is the willingness and effectiveness with which others follow.
Mm.
So I know
like
that's probably a little dated, but
No,
yeah,
quality is never dated. That's that. Those are good insights that I think would be welcome uh, in any leader. Absolutely.
Well, he's looking at basically the result. It's like you're
Right.
trying to decide who you should put in charge of something. That's what this is. This is how
There's-
you appraise somebody. And ultimately it's about the result. You may think that it's about personality and likability and respectability, and those things are all very important, but it's like you said, the acid test is whether or not people will follow.
Yep.
And that's what makes a good leader. A good leader is the one that people follow.
And so it goes.
And
But
so
anyway.
it goes. It's like saying, art. Well, I know art when I see it.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, to say that nothing succeeds like success, and I'm sure some in the audience might be saying that. That is really very true with leadership. You do find you can tell from the product produced, the condition of the people working for them, and just something in the nature of the people themselves. A good leader will leave his mark on the people he leads in some way or another, and it'll be for the better.
Yeah, there's a lot of rules of thumb that you can use. Like, for instance, a good leader, in my opinion, usually is somebody who does a very good job of developing staff. Rather than trying to build a fiefdom where they make themselves irreplaceable, you want somebody who actually organizes, deputizes, supervises, categorizes, strategizes, basically creates systems and puts them in place that make the leader themselves almost redundant. And that person puts themselves in a position where they could be fired, but they could also be promoted to move on to the next thing. And when you have people that are insecure within a structure, it becomes very hard to get people to achieve their potential because they spend too much of their time trying to protect what they have rather than trying to build something that's better for them and everybody else. It's a lose-lose proposition to basically grind people.
You never run into that particular phenomenon in the IT industry, fortunately. It's just fun to say.
I just try to
don't
stay
believe
away.
you.
I try to stay away from sales operations people as much as possible.
Oh my God.
Well, because it's this whole thing where they have this incentive structure, which means, this is the guy that's constantly leaning on some poor IT person because they want to get the leads before somebody else does. Because it's just, it's very, very competitive. As a for instance, most IT people, IT is a great job, or at least it used to be, because a lot of sort of the prima donna lone wolf types could actually do really well in it. At Sun Microsystems, they would just take 5 smart people and shove them in a room for 18 months. And at the end of it, you'd get a new version of NFS.
Right.
Or you'd get something that works really, really, really well. And now they didn't like it during the 90s when suddenly the nerds started getting too much power because they were indispensable. So they've changed the IT industry to make people into replaceable cogs.
Right.
And so things change a lot over time, but a good manager, I remember when I first got into a IT management position, and I did, my style is what I like to call management by walking around, where I just sort of walk around and talk to people and see if there were obstacles I could remove to make them more efficient.
Dave Packard made it famous.
And that was good as far as it went, but I still didn't know what the hell I was doing. And again, it's not like there's a book on this that really means anything. At least not that I've found yet. You have to figure out what your own management style is and make it work.
Yeah, if anybody is interested in a management a good general management book that has a lot of good general principles, I will recommend In Search of Excellence by Peters and Waterman. It's I know it's an old book, and the management books are they're dated by the time they're printed, supposedly, but this one stands up, and the principles in it hold even today. It's a really superior collection of habits and practices of successful business folk, and the lessons that they learned from the survey that they did during the 80s serve even today. So, but at any rate, I think I'm detecting that people are sort of running out of gas a little bit. I certainly am, and I was going to see if anybody else had anything that they were bestirred by that they wanted to talk about before we go. Anybody?
Actually, before we did head off in that direction, there was another. I like the guy. He was my. I think he was English.
So you had this teacher.
Yeah, he was. He's a Native American teacher. I think it was it wasn't I don't know if it was Montana history, but I'm trying to remember what class it was that he was in. But he's he was also one because I had a friend who, when I first moved into town, she was a Native American gal, and I told her that I was Native American also, and instead of the normal reaction when people see me is no, you're not. And she was the first one who was like, oh, what tribe you from? And told her where I was from, and she said, oh, I never heard of that one. And then she actually asked her parents about other tribes, and she came back and she's just like, oh, my mom told me about this. And
So she,
go ahead.
sorry, continue.
No, she was. We're still friends to this day, and he was another one. I think I still see him at powwows around once in a while, and he's another one who taught. He also doesn't like the native stereotypes in media, and how he's like they're right to a degree, where you have people who are they're it's what they believed, but they weren't like stuck. Although there were some people who were like any religion. And he's like, you had people who, and he even called it out for what it was. It's like there are people like if you were concerned about racism as it is now, like back then, like it was unfettered. It was man on man, dog eat dog. You take 2 steps in the wrong direction and you're getting a tomahawk to the face. And he's like, the one thing that really annoys me is that, people are saying that, natives are the people of peace when not necessarily. And he was very forthcoming in his history, and he was also one that I really looked up to when I was in high school.
So you did have somebody like that who, imprinted you with some of these good habits and these good thoughts and words.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
I think the
All right.
person that accepted you for you immediately also, it's nice not to have to. It's nice to be accepted for who you are without having to give. Well,
Here's my
yeah.
pass. Here's my race card.
Yeah.
Laminated.
They
That's the race card that Elizabeth Warren wanted so badly too.
Yeah, but
Right.
I believe Johnny.
Oh yeah. Well, that's Johnny's authentic. Elizabeth Warren is as phony as she is crazy.
And she's my state representative.
And she's an angry woman.
She is an angry woman.
I think she's taken leave of her senses. I think the strain has got her. She needs to be in a quiet place where she can be safe and other people can be safe from her.
Only if she takes Nancy with her.
Just reading Assassin's comments. It says, criminals are the brute squad that the Democrats used to terrorize Americans into surrendering their firearms for the illusion of safety. Then they start putting people in camps. Good to know. He liked his company commander when he was the 101st. And by the way, in answer to the earlier question, assassin is Army. I guess we covered that. He said, I probably want to drop at least 80% of my NCOs I work for face down in the dirt. I know that's probably a helpful Army technique for management. He said those were the insecure fiefdom types. Yeah, the little princes of their own fiefdom. I know exactly what you mean. They had those in the Navy too. And it's that sub-optimization. It weakens every organization you find it in, where somebody is, trying to make their department look good at the expense of other departments, and ultimately the organization. You run into a lot of that kind of behavior in any large group. Pardon me?
Sorry, I just looked up and saw that I've multiplied. How long have you been like that?
Nicely done.
Well, I figured if
there's kind of a sixth symmetry to the board this evening.
I figured if Johnny was going to do that with Skepcat, I would do this with Jenna.
Yeah, this is just too good. Enjoying this way too.
I don't know how I feel about
quality content.
That's scary.
Quality content here tonight. But at any rate, as I said, we're kind of winding down. We're playing with our icons, so I think it's probably time to call it a night. And but I do want to thank chat for coming out and listening to us. We do this for you, and thank you to my panel. Thanks for hanging with me. It's an amazing thing that we get to do. Something just seems absolutely extraordinary to me that I could be at this stage of my life and hanging out with you guys and broadcasting to anybody and everybody who wants to listen to me. That's a great thing. But we're gonna shut it down for tonight. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.